Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to my spoiler-filled review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. I'm not going to do the thing where I do the first half spoiler-free and then the second half full of spoilers, because I think this movie, more than any Star Wars movie ever, is one that needs to be seen completely fresh and with an open mind. Don't look and see the opinions of others. As I said, this is one that you need to experience for yourself, perhaps more so than any other Star Wars movie ever. With that being said, I'll give you a few seconds to leave, and now we're going into spoilers. So before I talk about spoilers, I just want to say that this review is going to be totally unscripted. I kind of went back and forth on whether I want to make it, but I've got feelings about this movie that I think I want to get out into the internet. A few things though. One is that I was spoiled beforehand. Someone revealed to me on Discord what happens to the major plot points, so that likely impacted the amount I enjoyed this movie. Second, I've only seen this movie once, although I did have it spoiled. This could be one of those things where repeat viewings changes how I feel, either more for it or against it. Just generally though, I also want to say that there's no right opinion. I've seen on Twitter people arguing that this was the greatest Star Wars movie ever and saying if you didn't like it, that you're basically mistaken, or that it's the worst Star Wars movie ever, only the critics liked it, everyone else didn't. Just, if you liked it, that's fine. I will say personally though, I can't remember leaving a Star Wars movie and being more disappointed with what I had just watched. I was a child when the prequels came out. I remember the only one that I really remember seeing for the very first time would be Revenge of the Sith. I did see all the other ones in theaters, but I was relatively young and I saw them a bunch of times. Can't remember which one was the first. This movie did a lot of things that I found really disappointing. Probably chief among them was a lack of consistent vision. I was one of those people that liked The Force Awakens, and I liked it quite a bit. Did have some serious issues. The universe felt quite small, and there was a bit of tone lacking compared with what some of the previous Star Wars movies had. The presence or lack of presence of George Lucas I thought was quite obvious, but overall I thought it tied back to the original trilogy quite well, and although a little bit derivative, did open the door for future stories. Unfortunately, right now at least, I can't say the same about The Last Jedi. I think that this series and the sequel trilogy now has totally faltered due to a lack of consistent vision. I know people had problems with JJ, but I think having him map out the general story for all three movies would have helped tremendously. Because this middle part of the trilogy, you can tell that it was made by someone other than The Force Awakens. It drops ends from The Force Awakens. The killing of Snoke is one, but I think you can still explain that away due to story reasons. I personally didn't like them killing him, but I understand that. But there is a lack of consistent tone, and it just feels different. Like this at times didn't feel like I expected it to. The Force wasn't treated how I expected it to. Technology didn't behave like I wanted it to. And really, even the characters didn't feel right to me. I think that perhaps Rian didn't understand the characters that JJ created, and he at least didn't handle them correctly. I also didn't like the direction they took Luke, although I will admit that is arguably a personal preference thing. Some people like to see the defeated hero come back and have his redemption, but I feel like that's already been something that Luke has traveled in some way. He faced temptation with the dark side in Return of the Jedi, and I would have liked to see him find more success in the New Republic and in the New World that they created after the defeat of the Empire. But as I said, I would have accepted that had there not been other major problems within this movie. I mentioned tone. For one, it didn't really feel like Star Wars to me. Again, some of that was due to how the characters acted, but also the humor at times was super forced. I did like some of the jokes. I wasn't nearly as critical as others were. The Porgs were completely fine. I liked the joke that Poe did at the beginning and several other jokes, but having BB-8 man the walker and obliterate all those stormtroopers on the Supremacy just felt totally wrong. Same when he did similar things on Canto Bight, which, speaking of, I think was totally wasted. One thing that's kind of bothered me about this trilogy is the fact that they haven't drawn from the original trilogy in some weird ways. Like, we haven't visited planets that we know, but at Canto Bight we don't even see aliens that we recognize. I looked, I didn't see a single Twi'lek or Twi'lek, depending on how you say it. I didn't see, a Gamorrean, a Hutt, nothing that I recognized, and I just don't understand that. If they had had some Jabba-like creature there, we would have known that it's a seedy place, but Instead, I feel like Rian wanted to depart from expectations, and he did so to the detriment of the film generally. I know I'm kind of going back and forth on my topics of conversation, but I really just want to rant about how I feel about this movie. He departed not only from the original trilogy in tone, plot, and I guess those are the two main things, but he also departed from The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens set up loose ends, which I feel like an interesting loose ends. The Rey parentage thing, which I was fine with how they handled that in The Last Jedi, but the Snoke thing I think was wasted. I think The Force Awakens was the journey to find Luke Skywalker, and that's almost something that they repeated in The Last Jedi, but not in a meaningful and satisfying way. I think the biggest problem is that this movie, not only does it not feel like a continuation of the Star Wars saga, but it doesn't even feel like a continuation of the sequel trilogy. Rian tried to do too much, but in the end, it didn't end up doing enough. He tied up too many loose ends, or just removed the plots altogether, but didn't do so in an interesting way. However, he also introduced some new characters, Holdo, DJ, and Rose, and I think Holdo was really the only interesting one. The whole Rose and Finn trip to Canto Bight made no sense, didn't forward the plot in any sort of way, and really took me out of the movie. Like, you're telling me that the best plan to save the Resistance ship is to jump to a faraway planet somehow in less than 20 hours, find this code breaker, break into this impenetrable mega star destroyer, and then jump away? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's also kind of falling into that frustrating trope where if the characters just talk to each other, if Holdo just revealed that the plan was eventually to go to Crate, that whole side story wouldn't have happened, there would have been no conflict, and characters not talking to each other is one of the lamest ways to add drama to a story. I really dislike the character of Rose just generally. I don't think she added anything to the story. The romance with Finn at the end it made no sense. John Boyega, or Finn in the movie, seemed not interested in it. I hope that wasn't just bad acting and he's actually not interested, because I don't want her to be a focus on any more of the story. I will at some point talk about the things that I did like, including Kylo Ren, Rey, and some other parts of the story, but I just want to get out the other things that I didn't like first until we go to the pleasant stuff, because I would like to end on a high note. Well, at least now, I didn't like this movie. Perhaps in the future I will after more viewings, and I don't think the sequel trilogy is doomed, and Star Wars as a whole is certainly not doomed, but I do want to end on a positive note. Other things that I didn't like. I think the hyperspace ram, while beautifully done and visually stunning, didn't really make sense and doesn't really operate within the established universe. If ramming a ship could do that much damage, the Rebels could have just put a Lucrehulk through the Death Star and called it a day. Nothing really followed the established rules of the universe. Luke force projecting across the galaxy, Yoda as a Force Ghost being somehow able to manipulate the weather. That was cool, but again, it doesn't really make sense. There was no grandeur, no majesty. Even Snoke, who was an awesome character in The Force Awakens, although very mysterious, didn't bring forth the same sense of mystery and awe as he did back then, and that Palpatine did at first in The Empire Strikes Back, and of course in Return of the Jedi. To me, this was just kind of a bit of an inappropriate and ill-toned spectacle, which doesn't move the universe forward in any way that I like. I haven't even mentioned the Leia scene yet, which I know a lot of people had huge problems with, myself included. One way they could have handled that beautifully is had Kylo Ren be the one to put her back inside of the Raddus. She could have still gone into a coma or even died, but that would have shown that he was still an incredibly conflicted character, a theme that you see throughout this movie. Beyond that, there were other issues, but just generally I came out of this being very, very disappointed. Again, I did see episode 1 and 2 as a child. I remember seeing them. I don't remember my reaction, but this is the first time that I've come out of a Star Wars movie disappointed. After The Force Awakens, which as I mentioned had problems, I was happy. I felt like the universe had returned to a great place and that the future was bright. I still think the future is bright, but I just feel really disappointed after seeing this movie, and I don't know what else to say other than that. I'm not sure if Rian Johnson understands the Star Wars universe, both in mythos and in tone, but I got the impression from this movie that he didn't. Him or someone else meddled with it, adding humor, adding just a lack of references to the original trilogy and the rest of the saga in just a way that made this movie feel disconnected. I'm sure they'll be able to recover from this, but I'm just left disappointed. And most importantly, I guess it just doesn't feel right. I will say, though, that even since yesterday, I have warmed on the movie a little bit. I was pretty upset after seeing it. Perhaps with repeated viewings and more time to digest it, I will like it more. I'm not 100% sure who this movie is aimed at, though. I don't think casual viewers will enjoy it because it doesn't have the sense of grand majesty and scale that a Star Wars film typically does. You don't see a lot of the universe, and I think hardcore fans may be turned off by some of the choices. One last thing that I want to mention is that it seems like the movie has kind of disregarded the new Star Wars expanded universe. I didn't see Black Squadron in this movie. I was looking basically the whole time to try to see familiar pilots. I didn't see, for example, Snap Wexley at any point, although it is possible that he was there. And by killing Snoke, I feel like they disregard clear innuendo from both the Aftermath trilogy and the Thrawn books, which, at least in my opinion, heavily suggested that he was going to have some sort of interesting backstory. The actors themselves also made it seem like Snoke would be a very important part of the saga, and they specifically talked about his interesting backstory, his injuries, his hatred he has for the Jedi and the New Republic, and I don't know if that's going to be brought up in a book, but I don't think I'll even be that interested because ultimately Snoke accomplished nothing. He's not a very compelling character. He was used only as a pawn to move forward Kylo's character development. Again, that's what happens when you have different writers making their own episodes with no consistent overarching story. Let's talk a bit about the positives, because this movie did have some. I was iffy on the visual effects. I don't think they were as amazing as some people claim they were. I don't think they can stand up next to JJ's The Force Awakens movie. There was no shot that I really remembered of similar to, say, for example, Kylo and Rey standing in the forest with the snow falling down, or Kylo confronting Han Solo on the walkway. There was nothing to that level, in my opinion. I like the appearance of Yoda. I really liked the Kylo Ren Rey Force Bond thing that was going throughout this movie. I like how Snoke manipulated that. That was all really cool. I like the Guardians, or whatever the weird nun-like creatures were on Acto. I didn't mind the Porgs. I like how Luke had a whole life basically set up, how his X-Wing was drowned in the water. I liked all of that. I like the new walkers. I like the supremacy. I even like the Mandator 4 Dreadnought. But I wish we would have seen more TIE models. I wish we would have seen some new Resistance or Republic ships. And I don't know. There were a lot of things that I liked, but I can't get past the major issues that I had with this movie. Star Wars will be fine, though. I want to reiterate that. Even if fans in total don't warm up to this movie, things will be okay. I am still excited, too, for continuation of the canon, and I will be excited for Episode 9 as it approaches, especially now that JJ is back at the helm. But this movie was, in some ways, at least now I feel that it was a mistake in how it was handled. But don't worry about my videos and being afraid to cover canon content. Still be more than happy to read the new books, see the new movies, investigate the comics, and of course, my love for Star Wars Legends has not changed. All in all, I'm not going to give a formal ranking for this movie, especially because it's so soon after I saw it. I'm still kind of dealing with the recent disappointment, but for now at least it's among the bottom 3. Ask me again in 6 months and maybe things will be changed. Maybe I will be much happier about it. Maybe I'll even come to like it, but for now at least, not a big fan. I hope my review didn't bum anyone out, and remember, if you liked the movie, that opinion is 100% totally valid. Just because I didn't like it doesn't really mean anything. I am sure that plenty of people loved it. It seems like all the critics love it. It got phenomenal reviews. So if you were a big fan and if you're super excited for the way the canon and the current direction of the saga is heading, don't let me stop you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, this has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.